Assalamu alaikum everyone. So in our previous lecture we completed how to create NodeJs APIs to fetch data from MongoDB. Now we are going to continue with fetching that data in Flutter after getting it inside the NodeJs API. So for that we are going to create a Flutter application and add few things like where to populate the data. So for that we already know that we have these two APIs found that we did in a last video. One is for get and one is for post. So we also know how to request with a parameter. For example, in post we use body and in get we use, as you can see here, we are going to uh, usually it depends because of the intelligence, but it's request dot vehicle plus name, and we will just type here vehicle underscore name and then uh, so this is how we do it. Okay, so the difference is only that in get we get the data through query, that is the URL is appended with parameters, but in post we encode the parameters inside the body of the request, so they are not easily exposed to client what we are sending to the server. So before this, let's create a class and call it dart file, and let's call it API controller. Okay, so in API controller, okay, so the first thing is that let's rename it to small, because as far as I know, Flutter might have issues with capital letters. So let's create a class API controller. Okay, then add few things like um, items that we need. So the thing we need is fetching the data from the application. So for that, first what we need to do is in our terminal, we can say command system, and that will be here at the terminal. If you get these things hidden in your application, just click on this icon. Let's hover. It's like the key to unlock all the layout stuff of Android Studio. So the first thing we are going to do is Flutter. Okay, so let me close touchpad mouse. Let's Flutter up add HTTP. HTTP library that we are going to use is usually used to import API controls. So the first thing we are going to do is paste the controls from that HTTP. So if you want to see how it looks in pubspec.yaml, you can see here that I have added HTTP here in the dependencies. Well, these are too many lines here, so I'm going to make it easier for you that this is a part of uh, dependencies. Okay. Then you also need to add permission in your application source main Android manifest. So if you are finding difficulty, just go to Google and write Flutter add internet permission to Android manifest. Okay, so just look somewhere, you will find this uses permission Android control. And if you want to see that why we need it, then you can use the Flutter documentation. In my opinion, Flutter documentation should be used as the starting point for your learning. I'm just gonna save it and go back to the project instead of of course you know that we are not going to use Android section, we are going to use project section, because Android section is just to tell you how it is going to work. And our model should rely on this vehicle DB, that is ID, vehicle and variant. So before going there, let's create a model, call it vehicle. So class vehicle, and this is a vehicle. Then let's add integer ID. Let's see what it says. Let fine, I let. Let means it will be initialized later. So string vehicle name, let string variant, I guess. Let me check. Yes. Then we will add vehicle constructor. I think there is this bulb sign. Dependencies. No, ignore it. Let's see if it will help us. This I have to make it myself. So vehicle, and then ID underscore find ID string name, and then yeah. So this is like a constructor, I guess, if I'm not wrong. And then what we need is to create two methods that will be called from mapped and to map. So before we go further, I'm gonna just tell you why I'm making the model. What I will expect is that I will get vehicle as the data from the API. So I'll call this get vehicle data. Okay, so well, this is just because I need to import vehicle.dart. Nothing to worry about that. Vehicle V is new vehicle. I'm just gonna write one here for now as an initialized value, and initially it will be empty. So I'm gonna type as 0 and return vehicle. So return V. Okay. So what's happening here is that saying that V should be a future. So for that, let's make this async, and then we can expect that V can now be given later. So the problem here is that when I'm not typing async, it doesn't understand. Since this is a future method, so that means a request will be sent to some place and the data will come later, but this V is present. So when I type async, now I know this V will be uh, given the value later somewhere when this request is called to that server. Okay, so this is how it should be working. Then what you have to do, see, I haven't actually written the getter setters for this, so don't worry, we will write it later. So first thing is final response is http dot get. Now there will be error, so let's import package http dot dart is http, I guess, and dot get, and this is URL. So the URL will be same as Postman, but in get method just write test API, since we know that our VS Code project was set to test API. Okay, and we will like test, put it like this. Okay, so this says this cannot be URL, so I'm gonna check if I have done something wrong. So it says URL, and I think everything is fine. Is URL fine? It means that in Flutter, if you remember that when we were using regular expressions, we added small r here. They defined this as a regular expression. So same is the case here, that we are actually confirming this as a URL, not any other thing in this string will be present, just a URI. Okay, so URI is actually a location where or path where this API will be called. So whatever we will get in response can be in JSON or anything. So we have to handle this, that if our response has some code, let's see. So, okay, wait, first of all, there is code is 200, and then here I have written await here, so the response will come late. So nothing to worry about. So if our code is successful, it simply means if our code is successful, that means API will give us back a response. So when we send a request to the API, it will give me something in return. So status code 200 means I did get something in return. After this, I'll write response, sorry, JSON decode. Okay, so this will be small JSON decode, and then response dot body is not equal to null. This means that our API should return data in some format. So this JSON decoder simply means that if I'm receiving a JSON, then I should translate that JSON and then get all the dictionary name value pairs in whichever way I can. Okay. So if our body is not equal to null, then it's fine. Else return MTV. So when we get MTV, we know that we did not get anything record in a reply from the API. Okay. So this was like a part that says that uh, we are handling the code very efficiently and there should be no error. Okay. So this is how our application's API should work. We call the API, it returns something back. We can verify that if it's 200, that means it returns something back. Now, if its body is null, null also means that API returned null. That means it did not find any record, so it responded back. So if it's null, that means 200 but no data. But if it's not null and 200, it means it returned some record from MongoDB database. So let's go back to the vehicle and I think we will need required keyword here, so we will check that later. So map string comma dynamic into map. Okay, vehicle v. So dynamic should be small, writing either a return or a throw statement at the end. So return lesson, and that will be id equal to p dot id. Okay, so this will be thing because this is like a JSON, and then vehicle name p dot vehicle name, and don't worry, I'm going to explain this. So variant p dot variant. So what's happening here is that what we are trying to do is that we are converting a model vehicle into a JSON object here. Okay, so this is like a setter, you can say that I'm setting the values based on this. Factory vehicle, yes, from map string comma dynamic. So this is like translating API's response JSON to model that we are using. So what I'm trying to say is that when we get data from somewhere else, then this is how we will map it to JSON with respect to our model. It's like a getter setter thing. So this from make works like a getter method. It's a return vehicle and then close. So it says three position arguments expected, and that will be map then id comma full name variant. Since we are using the same model parameters like a database, MongoDB has the attributes that is id vehicle name variant. So this is how I do it. But in MongoDB, it's underscore id instead of id underscore, because I written in such a way because Flutter does not accept underscore id in such a way that its prefixes underscore. Okay, so everything is fine, but I'm getting this error. So adding a parameter in constructor in such a way that it should be written required. So let me try something else. Instead of using this constructor, I'll go to I right click on the class, generate a constructor that has all three items, and this will be like this. Okay, I'm still getting this, so maybe required, and then getting required here. So this means that all these data are mandatory, and as you can see, the error has been resolved. So if you are having a confusion on why is this happening, so um, let it put it this way. When I'm sending the data to API, I'll use two map because I'm creating a map here that my ID is equal to this ID. So I'm gonna put it like this. So underscore ID vehicle name and variant will be sent to the server. But when I'm getting data from the API, I'll say from map means I'm getting the data somewhere else. Then I get the data and save it inside my model in such a way that itself it is a JSON style format. As you can see, I have written name value pair here, name and pair. Okay, so name value pair. Okay, and this thing is called generic because generic or generic, whatever you want to say, it simply means that you are creating a function such a way that it will have string on the left and dynamic on the right. And dynamic means it could be bool, integer, double, float, string, any kind of value. That's why it means dynamic data type. So our model is ready. We will go back to model and IDs. Let's see why it's saying like this. Oh yes, we changed the model style. Now I can say this is 0, empty, and empty. Okay. So B is lesson decoder response dot body. Okay. So it will say at cast lesson decode. But this requires a little bit of, you can say, string command dynamic lesson format. Then we will say this should be sent to from map. Okay. So this is how it will store the data in V, and then just return that V. We can just say return vehicle dot from map. So let's see. This is how our function will be created, and let's call it into, sorry, here get vehicle data, and import API controller dot app. So API controller dot get vehicle, or I think a controller is get verifier. So if I'm not wrong, this will auto execute, and we can say that I need to store some values into controller.getVehicleData. But for that, directly calling this method is wrong. So not wrong, but not a good practice. So I'm going to just say here void get vehicle data, and let's see why I'm getting this. It's parameters, and say vehicle is not vehicle. Yes, vehicle. He is API controller dot get controller dot. Okay. So there are two ways we can do this. Code vehicle dot get result. as vehicle. So this should return, if I'm not wrong, data from the API. So let's see our link is right. And okay, so API is turned off, so I'm gonna restart it. API is ready. Test API. Send. So it's giving me null value. So let's see what could be wrong. Okay, so I haven't sent any request query. I'm finding only the first value. Okay, so our API should work now. So let's hope for the best. There will be nothing previewed on the screen. I'm just checking if there is any error. Code is running, there is no error. So let's see now. If I start off running it manually, I should try it running with debug and see if our breakpoint is working. Okay, so the first mistake we have done is before even checking breakpoint is that we didn't call this method. So I'm gonna run it now. So let's see. Scheduled macro task. Okay, so URL I posted here not considered by the GET request. This URI is not working, so I'm gonna use parse method. Parse, pick it again. Okay, so our API is called, but we got nothing in return. So we are going to put breakpoints here and see if we got the response and error is somewhere else. So restarting the application. Okay, so we did get response back. So if I'm not wrong, our body should have something. So body has the vehicle name Corolla. So one thing is clear that we did get our API back. Okay, so but we did not maybe convert it rightly into vehicle format. So I'm gonna check it. Status is fine. We did get a response body as not null. So the problem lies here. Okay. So return vehicle dot from map const dot. It's getting yes. So it's getting null value at ID. Maybe this is not the right name of the field. Maybe I should open MongoDB and vehicle name is fine. Variant is, I think this is small I. So let's check it again. Okay, so first of all, I have to also save it here, redo it. This is the mistake then. Oh boy, this is as equal as semicolon error that everyone faces in FOP course when starting the journey of programming. So application is running. Cross. Yes, it's small I. Oh my god, I think it. Thank God. So we got the value in the ID now. As you can see in map, it's small underscore ID and I was writing capital ID and then it's save. So it returns V, but it's of future type, right? So that means this data will come in future. And in main.dart, we haven't mentioned that the future item should be always be in async mode. It should be await, and as vehicle is not required since we now have the future element that is calling it. So now I can write print p dot vehicle name to verify if I'm getting the value in the console. Okay, so you can see Corolla of 2014 has been successfully called through the API. Now we can work on our UI and let's say, and I can just write here p dot. Okay, so what was the update here? Vehicle B. So now I'm calling it globally. V is vehicle whose initial values are these empty strings, and I can write here vehicle underscore is this, right? So vehicle dot. Okay. So for that I have to write set that, and then I will write b equal. Okay. So set state method will automatically keep updating the values of the variable declared inside the my homepage state, which is basically the class where you write the widgets. Okay, so I'm gonna make pivot to style occupation underline. Gonna see if I'm getting the values on the GUI. You can see here Corolla 14 has successfully been printed, and this is on the main access center. I'm gonna write start or whatever will be link. Okay, so we are going to give some padding to it. Okay, fine. Padding will be agent set for all. That will be 20. Okay. File will be again column, and in column I'm gonna add this text children text. Let's see it now. Okay, so we have got everything fine now. I'm not liking underline, so text font style, I guess. Size. Uh, font size is 20. Okay, now. Okay, now this is Corolla 2014, and then I'm going to give it another widget text equal dot variant, and then same style attribute. Okay, so this will be 14. Let's see now. This is Corolla 2014 XLI. Okay, so this is how you fetch the data inside the API. Boy, there were so many errors, but I hope through my own difficulties you also understood how to resolve these errors. So there is not a simple method. The one I taught you in class might be a little bit different, not much, but a little bit different. But we hopefully did it well. So this is how you do the GET request in Flutter and successfully get the data from MongoDB. Okay, so we will do post request as second part. So for post, let's create another method and call it uh, get vehicle data post, I guess, because I'm too lazy, and write post. Okay, for post there is no any different requirement, so all we need to do is use post API. I'm gonna go in VS Code, copy this URL path, and just say get all the records for now, since we are not right now doing through parameters, and refresh it, and let's see. Yes, so there is no error in the code. All I have to do is now just call the post method. So I'm going to write post refresh, and as you can see the data is returned back. So there's nothing to worry about there, like what is difference between post and get. We are going to do that in lecture number 3, but it has mostly to do with how you send the parameters to the request to process some data. So far, okay, so let's continue with adding parameters. So the only thing that you do in Flutter for get parameter is simply that you send the parameter, like I want to know if there is a record with certain ID, like for well, ID is too complex in MongoDB right now. So let's take variant. So I want to say I want the car that has a variant called XLI. So I'm gonna just add a URL here, and then say sorry, query string here, variant is equal to XLI. Now see here, this is called query. Okay, and this is inside a string or URL. That's why it's called query string. Okay, and get method only supports parameters through query string. So whatever you apply on this will be sent here. There is an extra parameter in get though, that is headers. And you write here what kind of header you are looking for, like let's say you can say content type. So what you do is just write here string comma string, and then method. I think this is not required, and not even this. All you need to do is content type and application slash JSON. API is fine, but let's go back to the VS Code and add the new value for the parameter, that is that since we are talking about variant, so variant request dot query dot variant. So let's first verify that our get parameter is working well. So variant, sorry, in body variant is XLI. As you can see here, the same case is happening in Postman, and you get the data XLI. If I write here 222, it should return null. So XLI, and we got the data. The same we are going to do in the JSON. Refresh it. The code is updated here. As you can see, we did get the data correctly. So if I'm writing 222, it should return. Okay. Now remember, I'm using here the get vehicle data get, which was not used post, was used. As you can see, it's now empty. Why it's empty and not saying no data found or anything? Because I haven't actually sent a message to the user that data is not found. I just simply sent an empty value for the vehicle, so it's printing empty values. It's up to you how you handle the error. So I hope you understand that only this parameter is added, because since we are sending the data through the URL of the string, the parameters are sent through URL of the API's address. So this query part means that the URL address end part is called query string. So this is that query dot variant. It simply means like I don't know why this PSP open. Postman, you can see here this is query parameters, right? And these query parameters are called after question mark here. This question mark means I'm asking something, and in return I want something to be done next. Okay. So same will be the case for post API. Only difference will be variant is request dot body dot variant. So instead of taking data from the body, oh sorry, query string, it will send the data inside the body. So this is post, and instead of sending the data in the query string, what we will do is put the data in the body and JSON decode, and always in this confusion, so string comma dynamic, and then close. Okay, so this is fine. So I'll write here variant and just here XLI. So this is how our get vehicle post data will work. Now I'm using get vehicle post data. Okay, so this was the mistake that I was doing. First of all, let me get you back to the state you saw in the Flutter code. Only thing that I did wrong was adding the wrong headers working. So as soon as I add this headers, and I'm too tired to memorize this, but as you can see in body now variant has been coming, and you will see the record has been printed.